Monday morning check-in and happy International Women's Day. Today is a very special day because we get to really acknowledge who we are as women, and really I'm hoping that you will really just not only appreciate all of the sisters that you have in your life and the women who have mentored you, but I also want to invite you to appreciate yourself today, because you as a woman are powerful and contribute so much to the people around you. So remember, today is not just International Women's Day, it's your day as well, as is every day in my book. So today I want to talk to you about how our inherited love patterns sabotage our everyday life. And, every morning, every Monday morning, I kind of give you a little anecdote of my life because that's how I learn. And hopefully you can take from my experience and just do some practicing this week with that particular the particular topic. And today is all about not just about self-sabotage, but it's about how like I said, our inherited love patterns sabotage our daily lives, really, and how it shows up. So that saying, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Well, that's kind of like what I used to do. I used to do that frequently, and I still have to catch myself to not completely, just throw things away when I'm in the process of doing them. And what I mean by that is, um, when I was maybe about 30, I started to notice a pattern in my life that I was repeating over and over. And this pattern looked like I would have a project, I would be doing something. It could be a new business, it could be literally a project, something that really meant a lot to me on some level. And I wouldn't finish it for some reason. There would always be some excuse. My children were the greatest excuse not to finish anything because, they took up all my time. And I would do this repeatedly throughout my life. And when I finally noticed it, and the reason I noticed it was because I would feel like I could never finish anything. And of course, when you have children, it's kind of the way it is. But really, I was using my children as the excuse. I really could finish those things. So I noticed this sort of pattern of not finishing things and giving up on myself. And I had to stop and really dissect where that showed up in my life. So, for example, uh, when I was maybe around 20, for example, I was 20 and I started a new business with a bunch of friends. And we were going to start an aerobic wear line back in the days when it was called Dancercise. And there was maybe one other company in all of North America at that time. And I put in my investment money, and it was a group of people. And I did my part, I think, to contribute to the business, but I found that I was not acknowledged. My contribution wasn't acknowledged. It wasn't considered. I felt dismissed. And so I just decided that with school, because I was also going to schools, going to business school, and I was really busy. And I kind of said, okay, I'm too busy at school. I can't continue with this business. And I pulled out. And then later on, being a serial entrepreneur, every time I would start another project in my 30s, I started an interior design company. And again, when I got to the point where I had to expand and really put in all of my energy, I noticed after the fact that this fear came up, and what I did was I quickly used my children as the excuse to not progress the business. And so then I stopped it, went back to being a full-time mom and just a consultant. And this played out over and over and over in my life. And what I discovered was when that thing meant a lot to me, that was when I decided to make that project or that thing define who I was on some level, if it didn't, feed my void of unhappiness, or if it didn't, feed me on a soul level. I mean, that's really the way life should be. But if it really didn't make me feel, considered and I guess on some way give me some sort of level of prestige. Sort of. It's very nuanced and very complicated, the feeling that I discovered about myself. When it didn't do that for me, I would just kibosh it. I would stop. And years later, as I started to do my work, my deep work around my family upbringing and the traumas that I had, and I started to really uncover those patterns and how they manifested and what was the link between all of them. I really discovered how that feeling of needing to be, seen and acknowledged really was driven by this trauma story that I had from when I was a child. And this inherited love story is what I call it, inherited love. Yeah, inherited love story is a story that I've carried with me throughout my whole life. I've carried it to all of my relationships, my friendships, my my relationships with colleagues, with my employers. And now that I know what that pattern is, I can immediately pinpoint it and see what that feeling is in my body. Where is it coming from? And then I can link it back to that story. And then I can deal with it. Then I can shift it. Then I can start reframing whatever the story is that I'm saying to myself in that moment. That's how you can get out of that past pain trauma, the story, the way we sabotage ourselves, and the way you're probably sabotaging yourself in your daily life. But first, we have to become aware of it. Okay? We can sort of just acknowledge that we're sabotaging our relationships. But if we don't really become aware of how we are sabotaging them, what is the story that we keep repeating that makes us feel that we're not worthy of that type of love, or whatever the story is you're telling yourself, if you're not able to pinpoint that story, then you're never going to change or shift the energy around your self-sabotaging. So, like every week, I give you a little challenge. This week, what I want you to do is to pay attention to when you feel like you want to give up. Pay attention to when you say to yourself, oh, you make up an excuse. Oh, I'm just too tired now, or I just don't have the brain space, or I don't have the funds. Whatever the excuse is, they're all just excuses, because we don't need acknowledgement. We don't need any external validation to help us achieve what we need to in our lives. It all comes from within. Always, always. We don't need the money. You can always find the money if you really want to do something, right? Always. You've done it in the past. You know it happens. You know that you can always figure it out, whatever the thing is. If you don't have the knowledge, or if you're saying to yourself, well, I just don't know enough about that, and so I'm just going to stop, then you can always find out and find a mentor, find a course, find some books. You can shift that knowledge bank, right? Um, and also, I just want to reinforce that when you are giving up on yourself, you are dismissing yourself as well on some level, right? On some level, you're saying, I'm not worthy of completing that particular thing. I'm not worthy of that thing which I initially wanted, but now I don't, because it's too hard, right? You're dismissing yourself. And on some level, what I used to do is I used to say, the way it would also show up for me, and constantly does too, I've caught myself so many times recently, is when someone pays a compliment to you, right? What's the first thing you do when someone acknowledges you or compliments you? When that's so unfamiliar, you say, oh, that's nothing, or you diminish it. You don't want to receive the compliment. And I used to say, oh, that's just being humble, right? It's just being like not selfish. um, but in fact, what you're doing is you really are just dismissing yourself. And that's another form of self-sabotage, another form of reinforcing that unworthiness story that you have. So, again, your challenge for this week is notice when you are wanting to give up. Notice when you are wanting to, quit something that you previously wanted to do. And all of a sudden, something's come up, that is stopping you from achieving that goal that you really wanted to begin with. Notice that. Notice how it feels in your body. Where does it feel in your body? Generally, it's going to be fear, and fear always lands in our belly or in our gut, and it travels up to where our heart is as well. So in that whole core area, you're going to feel something. And that is deep trauma, that's heartbreak, that's fear of not being accepted, fear of not being loved. And I want you to sit with that. I want you to breathe through your body and just become aware of that pattern. And the more you become aware of the patterns of when you give up on yourself, when you dismiss yourself, the easier it will be for you to then find ways to change it and find ways to shift that behavior. So do that this week. Just notice when you want to give up. Just notice it. Notice where it lands. Breathe through it. That's all I want you to do this week is just notice when you want to give up on yourself. Notice when you want to give up on a project or when you can't acknowledge and accept a compliment. Just notice how that feels in your body. Okay? So I know that's a big one because that's something that we as women are always wanting to change. We don't stand up for ourselves more. We don't speak up for ourselves. We're always diminishing ourselves. And what happens when we do that? We put out the energy of I want to diminish myself, and therefore you pick people in your life who will actively, help you achieve that goal of diminishing yourself. Yeah. So try that today. I also want to remind you that this coming Saturday, there's going to be a Living Your Best Life retreat that I'm going to be holding live. It is exactly dealing with this and how you aren't able to manifest your best life. Because manifesting your best life is about being happy in your life. So we're going to learn how to shift that dynamic, and I'm going to give you some really great tools. So there's a link attached to this video. Just sign up. It's really cheap. The spots are filling up, so just get your spot right away. And I will see you hopefully Saturday, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye. See you.